Okay, cool. I think we'll jump straight in. So welcome everyone. I hope everyone's doing okay and staying safe in the crazy times at the moment. If you have a pen and pencil, I'm hoping there'll be a few useful takeaways from the session today. A quick introduction to myself. I'm Nyle. I'm the technical product manager of DAPx. That's our digital acceleration tool that we use to help companies with their digital transformations. I'm also a technical reviewer for Pact Publishing, web development teacher, and a business mentor through the WeWork Global Experts Network. I started in Singlepoint as a lead engineer, and I transitioned into the role that I am in now, where I define the goals for DAPx by working with our customers and partners. If you'd like to have a chat about any ideas or anything at all, really, please feel free to reach out to me directly or anyone in Singlepoint, and we'd be more than happy to help. So here at Singlepoint, our job is helping clients find transformational success. This is partly due to our technology delivery, but it's also with our help in strategy and planning. We try to go for the full digital experience, from customer experience, analytics, a streamlined business process, and even cloud infrastructure. Our platform our platform approach is digital transformation, or the way companies do digital transformation is just a little bit more rapid. So over the past decade, we've kind of worked with a variety of businesses, from digital SIM cards, insurance, banking, and even Facebook. And working with such a diverse range of companies has led us to become experts in digital transformation. So what is digital transformation? So it's corporate spiel usually. So we see it thrown around, buzzwords like blockchain and AI, and businesses usually just want to have it on their marketing banners. But to put it in plain English, we're just talking about doing business in a digital world. The environment we live in has changed, and I'm sure no matter how prepared, all of us have some teething issues with the remote work and working remotely in the whole COVID-19 scenario. But when we think about the way we work, travel, shop, consume, bank, everything has all been changed by how we do things online. In the last decade, we've seen companies like Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google, and lots of other startups have extreme success in having digital at their heart of their organizations. But most of us and most companies predate this era, or are playing catch up, I guess. It's these businesses specifically that we need to think about, that are trying to rethink their strategy and take advantage of more effective and efficient and measurable ways of operating. So you need to kind of remember that to win at digital is to fully embed it into your entire business. If established organizations don't undertake digital transformation, you risk becoming irrelevant. And if you risk becoming irrelevant, you risk, I suppose, losing your business or not being able to keep up with the competition at all. So we kind of face competition from nimble startups all the time, and every single sector has been hit hard by this. I think like one of the go-tos that I look at now is we can see that a lot of the banks are scrambling to get nicer online experiences because companies like Revolut have come in and just completely disrupted that entire scene. We need to rethink how we do strategy, embed digital inside our entire organization. So that means everything from HR to actually how customers interact with us has to be digital. There is a risk of becoming irrelevant if we don't actually go ahead with this. And we are in competition with nimble startups, so we have to leverage technology such as cloud providers and things like that, that kind of lets us catch up with these smaller nimble companies. A lot of these companies are actually starting to employ, I suppose, smaller expert teams that can actually carry out some of these changes a lot easier. So digital transformation at its core needs to be a strategic and integrated program. And the key thing we need to think about planning a digital transformation is actually the strategy. It's not a fancy technology. It's not a shiny web app. It's not a new color or brand look. It's about coming up with a strategy that gives you a competitive advantage over the competition. People often think digital transformation is only about technology or setting new goals, but we believe technology is only useful if you use it to leverage a solid strategy. If your business doesn't have a good strategy, it won't matter how much money you waste on developing technology. The technology must not just exist. It has to enable business to do business better. That isn't just externally, but as I said earlier, it has to be internally too. Projects must be aligned across all the teams and functions, supporting the overall growth of the business. So if your technology is not helping your company grow, you're probably wasting time, effort, and most importantly to most people, money on the projects. The transformation needs to be seen as a long-term change. The journey that will eventually transition to a new normal, or what we will call business as usual when we get there. If transformation is about catching up and keeping up, the next phase will be the innovation, which is needed, I guess, to stay ahead. So let's just kind of reiterate here about what digital transformation is not. Organizations talk about digital transformation, thinking they have it covered, but quite often there's confusion about what constitutes as a strategy versus work that changes or impacts only one part of the business. So let's elaborate. So a website redesign, whilst having a corporate website and a nice shiny website is important to show your digital presence, it's only one avenue. If it's only your marketing that's got the shiny brands and stickers, it's again just focused solely into one department. So that's not a digital transformation. It's not an organization. If you've just got some random IT projects like out there, again, is it helping your whole business grow? Unless those IT projects have a strategy in mind, you're probably not doing digital transformation. Again, social media is just kind of like your website design and your marketing activities. It's good to be present, but it doesn't mean you're doing digital. And the bottom-up approach, and I think this is probably the most important piece here, is it's not a small part of your company. This has to be an organization change. And if your organization isn't from the top down and your business leaders aren't leading the change, it's going to be very hard to impact the entire business. So how do we implement a digital transformation? So common problems with digital transformation is when it's usually started as a box ticking exercise or not planned with the right expertise. So we might have a situation where the board of directors or other executives have asked about this digital stuff. Next thing you know, there's a digital transformation team assigned, and after the meeting, we have a team and it's all sorted. Great. But let's be fair, without having a properly planned program, governed with a robust project management standard and clear roles and responsibilities, this approach is bound to fail. And to make sure that the transformation will deliver on what you invest, the starting point has to be the business. And the first question we always have to ask is, what is the business trying to achieve? Where are we going with the business? Digital transformation has to be tied back to overarching key performance indicators or KPIs. And the transformation must be measurable with recordable, tangible results. And I guess this is our KPIs, but we need to make sure that when we try to create giant changes throughout the organization, we want to see that there's tangible results. The undertaking will require significant investment. So before you start, the purpose of digital transformation has to be agreed. It will take a lot of time, money, people, and resources across the board to actually get these things done. So there has to be a compelling business case. And I suppose that's why we spend a lot of time on actually developing a business case. There's many ways to develop and structure a business case, but fundamentally, you're trying to understand the opportunity, design a strategic approach, identify the tactical work streams, and outline the project constraints. So understand the opportunity. So understand where the gap is that you've seen. What is it, just a random idea, or have you tested, or have you done some research into this? We can't just be using an untested hypothesis and think this is definitely going to make us give us a competitive edge. We have to design a strategic approach, and obviously I keep on saying strategy, but we need to make sure we have a strategy of when this works. And then we need to identify tactical work streams. So first off, find your, I suppose, most painful work streams that you have, the things that you think could be automated most easily and create the biggest impact to your organization. Outline the project constraints. So the scope, time, like it depends on how much time you have, but mainly most people's constraints are the budget, because it's about getting the expertise and getting the right people in place. And then finally, probably the least important, I suppose, because it should fall into place from the previous steps, but inputting the details to the roadmap. We often see a lot of people do the roadmap first and think that's doing all the rest, but that should come after the research of everything else. After you have the business case, we have to go into the discovery and evaluation. You have to understand the overarching goals of the business over the next 5 to 10 years. So yes, we want to see immediate change and change in the short term, but if we don't have the long-term goals and plan, it's very easy for the plan to become too laser focused and then we'll veer off. We have to evaluate the current as-is landscape and working with each function, conduct kind of stakeholder interviews and understand the organization totally today. But I like to work in the following buckets that you see on the screen, and that's the people, because what's the business organization chart? Who do we have? What are the capabilities of the team? And even more important of what capabilities we have, what are the current capability gaps? So then we have to look at the process. How does each function operate today? What partners are involved? What is documented? What ways of working in place? Do we have agile already, or do we have a certain way that is slowing us down already? Is there anything we can improve there? Then finally, we talk about the technology piece. What tools and data are being used? What's the current architecture? What digital projects are in progress or planned? So sometimes we'll have these bottom-led approaches, and there might be some teams already starting to try and innovate. And if we aren't careful, these teams could actually interfere with the overall goal if they're not all pointed in the same direction. So it's important to actually remember what you actually have in process too. Other things you should look at during the discovery phase are to look at both direct and indirect competitors. So this kind of helps us get some inspiration, or look at how other people are innovating to get people excited about what we're doing. Make sure you know your customers. So talk to your customers, understand what they like, dislike, their pain points, and what their expectations are. Document the current as-is situation and present it back to the business, so that you can actually have a black and white approach showing it. This is what we want to get to, but this is what we currently have. Now, if you've all this done and done properly, you're ready to do a proposal. And once the business is aligned and signed off on the current state of the digital within the organization, you can move on to designing the future. So define the to-be transformed organization and look at this beside the business objectives. So again, make sure that they are pointing in the same direction as your business. Get sign-off from the leadership team, because it has to be top-down buy-in. If you don't have the leaders forcing or pushing the change, then it's very hard to get buy-in from the entire company. People will resist if you let them. And the other things you should remember is who does what and how much it will cost. I guarantee you, if you go to your stakeholders and you say all this brilliant stuff and you have a budget, they're probably going to be terrified to sign off. So it's going to be very, very difficult to get sign off. So I would say go with a ballpark price tag, and you'll probably also need a presentation to your board of directors. Now comes to the easier phase. Well, easier phase for us because that's what we do on a day-to-day basis. But as a product manager, it's kind of obvious. I'll say successful implementation comes down to planning, and it's probably the most overused concept in the webinar, but it's true. Implementation will depend completely on the planning. If we don't plan this properly, it's going to be impossible to get a good implementation done. And be aware of over-analysis paralysis as well. It's so easy to get bogged down in the details that we never get moving. Even if it's not perfect, you'll need to be moving to tell if it's even in the right direction. So at least get something started so you know whether you're going in the right or wrong direction. So when we jump in, let's make sure that we have clear communication and training schedule. So we're probably going to have to upskill a lot of people because a lot of people will be used to the old ways. It's important to make sure that we have a schedule to do that as well, so that people don't feel like that they're just expected all of a sudden to understand and know these things. Get in skilled contractors to support where the skills gaps are. And this goes back to where we had already looked at, finding our organization and seeing what gaps exist, but get the skilled support in there to make sure that you don't build these things without the expertise. Get the teams co-located wherever possible. Ourselves, we have employees all over the world, Canada, New Zealand. It's spread out far, and we're located here in Ireland. But I think some of the fastest and best work we've ever gotten done has probably definitely been the small teams that are just sitting in the office together, that we can just turn around and talk to each other. Where possible, this is a great way of doing things. Now, if it's not possible, just make sure you're constantly keeping up with each other on Slack or Skype or wherever you actually connect with your business. Share the bigger picture with them, and this is down to like everyone needs to know where we're going. Don't just like secretly say do this thing and things will get better. Try and get everyone to see your vision. And after we implement it, it's important that we kind of test and learn from all these things. We live in an environment that is constantly changing. If you told me 2 months ago that we'd all be working from home, I probably would have said, no, it'll never get that bad. But that isn't even on the technology side of things. Just things happen that we just don't know about. And that's the unforeseen unknowns will happen. There's always things that go wrong. Once you design a program and work streams, you won't learn until you start doing. So you'll need to change and adapt your approach as it happens. And because of that, we want to kind of create a culture of no blame. Let people take, I suppose, manageable risks. So obviously not risks that will destroy your organization, but make sure that there is strategic risks taken so that we can learn. And when we get the learnings, good or bad, we can pivot and move on very fast. Then once we have a no blame game culture and we know how to take the feedback and actually present it to the organization. And the journey will be hard. As part of the overall program of health, the process should constantly be reviewed. Allowing the whole team to input different ways to optimize this is probably the best way because it helps getting buy-in again. One of the best things we can think about this difficult journey is when we have a CEO of a startup where they're both the engineer, the marketer, and the technologist. Everyone's allowed to contribute their ideas for improvement. And if we, allow everyone to contribute, we can adapt and win. And this is super important. This is all about adaptability. Once we have a tough journey in place, once we keep on pivoting and adapting, we can nearly be guaranteed success once we're doing this often enough and checking up on the health of our program. So, success factors. This is probably some of our learnings we've gotten over the years, but in any complex program, you're far more likely to be successful if you have the following. One of the things here is educated leadership. We need to make sure that the leaders of your organization understand why the change is happening. They understand why we chose the technologies we're picking. They understand why there's blockers in the current way we do things. So I think it's not on the slides here, but one of the most important things you can do is actually have an educated senior leadership team. The senior leaders then must trust the people to do their jobs right. We can't have heroes who, are just looking for a promotion out of this. We need to get people who are actually who want the business to succeed long term, and not just like they just want their face on as the hero. We need to have top-down rollout, and again, I've said this a couple of times now, but it has to come from senior leadership. Be realistic with your time frames, because it's definitely going to take longer than you think. There is always times, especially when we're adapting, that just deadlines get pushed out all the time. Change your management program. Often with these changes, we'll get a new management structure, and that's okay. We need to adapt again, even our management structures, and that to actually adapt to the new way of doing things. Have incentives and training for your employees as well. Like, what's in it for the employees that have been there a long time, who are comfortable doing the things they've done for a long time? We want to kind of incentivize and train them so they can come along for the journey as well. We don't want them to feel like that we're trying to put them out of a job either, because that can also create a tough working environment. So make sure you test and learn all the time. And this goes back to just iterate. Get the supporting tools, documentation, and governance that you need to succeed. So this is usually like a box ticking exercise, in the sense of make sure you know what tools you need, where you're going to document things, what governance needs to be in place to actually do these things properly. Now, probably more importantly is to point out again is the watchouts, or where people go wrong. These are some of the most common things I've encountered, but there's no silver bullets. People who say they have the silver bullet are probably lying. Look, there's ways to move faster towards our goal, but there's no one best way to move towards it. Planning is critical, so make sure you plan. Transformation is always seen as a threat, so just be mindful of that when you get some resistance from your people. That's why I say, you need to incentivize and train your people so that they don't feel like this is a threat. People need to be prepared to adapt. Look, people are adapting, or have to adapt nowadays. I know, look, no excuse for people to not be able to adapt right now. And don't get sidetracked, as I just did on my tangent there, but we need to always keep a central goal in mind. We want to keep focused and keep moving. Communication is key. So again, like that goes back to like having people co-located, or if not, constantly connected through our work channels. Our management restructure, or telling people individually, hey, this is now your role. We need you to do this now. And then the final thing, which comes down to the tools and technology. So I just wanted to introduce our own platform in case it might help you with your own journey. And the DAPx Acceleration Platform is a combination of pre-built software solutions, workflow philosophies, and training tools. It's a tool that we built through open innovation. And I guess open innovation, if you're not aware of, is something I think leads to great things. I'll show you what open innovation is through, I suppose, a visual. It might be a little bit easier. So to use these facets to your advantage, we kind of combine your in-house knowledge with outside knowledge so you can collaborate to create some really innovative solutions. By having an outside perspective or by using something like DAPx, you might have a solution for your problem already built, or you might have met a company that have solved your problems or had similar problems and know how to traverse them already. So obviously from collaborating with like banks and Facebook and digital SIM cards and the likes, we've done a lot of innovating over the years now. And I think it's important to know that this open innovation has really helped us and the companies we've worked with. And again, it helps us create partners rather than, I suppose, just clients in the long term as well. So we hope that companies using DAPx can gain the most from an environment of innovation. And we want engaged employees that make happy customers. So DAPx is using our teams as a critical tool that kind of helps us keep our employees engaged or knowing how to work and as unblocked to be as productive as possible. And that comes down as well with our streamlined development process. And we use frameworks harvested from projects and open source methods and a collaborative approach to contributing to our development process. And we are, I suppose, what we do best because of the other things is building enterprise apps fast. So tools, and I'll jump in, I actually want to show you as well kind of a couple of the things we use, but we like to, we build full stack applications incredibly fast and successfully, and that's through these tools and the people we work with. So it basically boils down to, with DAPx, you don't have to reinvent the wheel because we probably have solved something you're trying to solve already, or something similar, or have worked with companies that have done something similar to yourself. And we would just kind of jump into some of the people that use DAPx. One of our most successful projects recently was the ISPCC. So they needed their entire organization changed to keep up with their help center and that. It's an award-winning software now. We've also worked with a major retailer, and we're working on downloadable SIM cards and things. So this one's a little bit more hush at the moment, but we're working on things like that as well. And we're even making a connectivity platforms so insurer brokers can actually fill out forms faster and have pre-built stuff all out of the box and have all their form validation. So none of the messing that you'd have with paper forms. I think the easy thing to show you is actually a couple of samples of what we actually have. Might make it a little bit more easy to understand. So let me just jump over to a tab here for a second. So we have things like our UI components. I'm picking our UI components because it's something I was involved with heavily in the development phase early on, but it's also very visual, so you can actually see things that are happening. So things like auto address here are documented for engineers, ready to use, and we can test out things like looking up addresses very easily then. So this is a common, I suppose, problem that a lot of e-commerce apps or insurance apps have had. It's just finding these addresses and making sure they're validated and right. We have a whole selection for different components ready to use out of the box. And if I jump over, we also have let me see if I can stop this for a second. I'm going to jump onto another tab to show you some of the stuff we have on like progressive web apps. So here we have like our progressive web apps section of DAPx, and it kind of helps us go through what DAPx is, or what the progressive web apps are from both a business point of view and for a cookbook for developers as well, so they can implement these strategies straight away out of the box. Okay, cool. Now I'm just going to try to get my slides back up and running. Okay. Excellent. I think we're back up and running now. So if you don't mind spending a couple of minutes with your coffee after this, I would love if you could complete a survey that we're going to send out after this. It just helps me stay super focused on what we're developing in DAPx. So please, if you don't mind, at the end, when we send it out, just fill it out. It shouldn't take too long. And if you have any questions you want to ask, feel free to reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. And if you have any questions, I'll stick around to watch the chat for a few minutes. But if not, that's us done really for today. So go and have an awesome day, and hopefully I chat to you soon. Thanks.